All right, it's time now to check in with our media partners from the Voice of OC for an update on what's happening this week in Orange County government and politics.
Here to talk about issues in the news right now, we welcome the editor-in-chief of Voice of OC, Norberto Santana.
Hi, Norberto. All right, a vote was scheduled at the Irvine City Council on whether to accept an ambitious offer from developer Emil Haddad and his FivePoint communities to finish building the Great Park, which has apparently run out of money. What happened?
The meeting was a marathon. It went from 5 p.m. Tuesday to 1:30 p.m. or 1:30 a.m. on Wednesday. Up for a vote was a deal for the developer FivePoint Communities to build most of the Great Park in exchange for being allowed to construct an extra 4,600 homes on land that's now zoned for commercial. Now, the proposal would have FivePoint build a massive sports park, an 18-hole golf course, and a canyon, and also a wildlife corridor, among other features, about 65% of the overall park. Now, their projected cost is about $172 million, which FivePoint says it will cover. Yet nagging questions about legal liability, financial responsibilities, and last-minute deal points led one of the plan's key supporters to prompt a 2-week delay. Now, ultimately, the council voted 3-2 for a delay, with Mayor Stephen Choi and Councilwoman Christina Shea dissenting. Now, it got personal for Councilwoman Beth Crom, who complained that FivePoint is destroying the park's hard-fought master plan.
You know, and if you take the master plan and you blow it up, then the money we invested in the planning, you're going to tell me, well, now you don't even have a plan. So why would I support you destroying my plan and then telling me you wasted money on the plan?
Now, the other side of that argument came from Councilwoman Christina Shea, who said that politicians like Crom are in no position to argue after spending hundreds of millions of dollars with little to show other than fancy plans. Now, the last entity that should be entrusted to finish the Great Park is the city of Irvine. Now, meanwhile, Shea said that with $250 million already spent on the park and not much to show for it, the city just can't be trusted to be in charge of finishing building it.
I want to thank our partners for bringing this forward. I think if anyone can do it, it's you. I don't think it's us. And I'm very excited about the prospect of getting this park moving.
Now, Mayor Pro Tem Jeff Lalloway, who supports FivePoint's plan, said a delay would help get answers. Now, last-minute changes to the deal ultimately forced a delay, with Mayor Pro Tem Jeff Lalloway saying that city staff still needed to get answers to key questions about finances and liabilities.
I'm confused why we would want to approve the document now when they're still in the process of getting changes to it. I enthusiastically support this. I want to vote yes. I want this to happen. We need to just work through these issues.
We'll know more in a few weeks.
Norberto, tell what your team found when the UCI in one of the most cutting-edge labs.
In a word, radiation. Not just politically hot stuff, but issues with radiation releases. Now, our Healthy Communities investigative specialist, Rex Dalton, discovered that a brain research center at UC Irvine quietly ceased human experiments in 2012 when government inspectors uncovered multiple quality problems, including poor sanitation practices and tainted drugs, according to officials and records he reviewed. Now, the diseases studied at the Brain Imaging Center included Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, epilepsy, and psychiatric disorders such as schizophrenia. Now, substance abuse, mood disorders, and responses to nicotine also were probed. Now, a report by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration assert that the Brain Imaging Center on the Irvine campus made and used radioactively tagged compounds that substantially exceeded allowable impurity levels in at least 168 patients. Now, the FDA report, as well as a separate state report and a lawsuit, have raised troubling questions about how the university conducts experiments on patients who typically are volunteers or recruited for drug trials. All told, the report, issued on May 3, 2012, cited 19 areas of concern, including improper testing to prevent bacteria contamination of drugs, faulty sterilization practices, and inadequate documentation. Meanwhile, a State Department of Public Health report issued in May of this year cited the Brain Imaging Center for failing to properly monitor radioactive releases to either staff or the public from 2009 through 2011. Now, the state report by the Radiologic Health Branch also found that licensed radioactive materials were stored unsecured for 5 years until early 2012. For example, the door to the lab with radioactive isotopes wasn't at all lockable. Now, a UCI spokesperson told us that the Brain Imaging Center's radiochemistry lab was indeed shut down in February 2012 because of irregularities. An investigation occurred and the program has remained closed ever since.
All right, Norberto, as city leaders in Orange grapple with losing a federal lawsuit over the enforcement of a gang injunction last week, they'll likely be weighing whether to ask District Attorney Tony Rackauckas to cover the millions of dollars in legal costs for the case. What are you hearing about this?
The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled last week that Rackauckas and the city violated the U.S. Constitution by, among other restrictions, banning suspected gang members from being in public after 10 p.m. without giving them a chance to show that they actually weren't involved in a gang. Now, this quote in the opinion from Circuit Judge Richard Tallman has sent shockwaves through the halls of the city and the County Hall of Administration. The taxpayers, here's the quote, "The taxpayers of Orange County now get to pick up a multi-million-dollar tab for the litigation that ensued from the district attorney's bad tactical decision," end quote. Now, that bill is expected to include at least $3 million for the American Civil Liberties Union, which brought the suit. Now, Orange City officials say they'll be following Rackauckas' lead on whether to appeal or not. As for the costs, council members will ultimately decide whether to seek reimbursement from the district attorney. Orange City Attorney Wayne Withers told us that that is already on the table.
All right, very good. Thank you so much, Norberto.
For more of these stories and other political news throughout Orange County, go to voiceofoc.org.